Over the years, Senator McConnell, Leader McConnell, has always been very generous in his time with AEI, and he's done a lot of these conversations. And I'm hoping in this one we can maybe get you to say something controversial and exciting, maybe, because you can sometimes be kind of quiet. So I'm going to start with something easy and ask, what was the key factor in you winning back the Republican majority in this recent Senate election? What would you say, in your role as an electoral strategist, was the key thing that made that victory happen?
Well, it's tempting, of course, to give us all the credit, but the fact of the matter is, I think in the end, the election was a referendum on two things: the cost of living and the open border, which really, the Democratic nominee for president really couldn't separate herself from the current administration. So I think that was a great asset. Not that we didn't run a better campaign than we have in the past, I think we did, but I would mostly give them credit for having really a terrible administration for 4 years.
Now, one of the things I hope everyone heard is that you're stepping down as leader, but you're not going away. And you're going to be in the United States Senate for at least the next 2 years. And what are you most worried about that you want to either prevent from happening or make happen? What are you worried about?
Well, at the risk of repeating myself, this is the most dangerous period since right before World War II. We have collective sharing of purpose between North Korea, who, as we all know, has troops helping the Russians fight the Ukrainians, China, Iran, and Iran's proxies. And they're all talking to each other. These are not isolated issues. They're all talking to each other. They hate us. There's nothing we can do to hide from that. We can quit standing up to them, but that's not going to deter them from coming after us. So I think Reagan had it right on so many different things. You get peace through strength. And strength needs to be measurable. How much are you spending on it? And I think we clearly are way below at 2.7%, being able to impress this axis of evil that we are going to stand up to.
So that's longer term, but there's a war going on in Ukraine tonight. And I wondered, is there something you want to make sure at the very least happens in the next year there? And what do you think are your prospects for success?
I think the most important thing is to beat the Russians. Which leads you to ask the question, what is the definition of victory? I've felt all along, whether it's Israel or whether it's Ukraine, we shouldn't try to tell them what success is. And one of my criticisms of this current administration is they're telling the Israelis what they can and can't do, telling the Ukrainians what they can and can't do. I think we ought to help them win, because winning, they have to live there. I think they've got a better judge about what's necessary to win than we do. So in Ukraine and in Israel, I think they ought to decide what victory is. And for those who complain about the money we've spent on the Ukraine supplemental, for example, over half of it's being spent in this country, in 38 different states. I was at a facility that's being launched in my state just last week, funded by the Ukraine supplemental. The other thing that's doing is allowing us to retool our industrial base. The older weapons are the ones we're sending overseas. We are developing new weapons that we need for the long-term contest, potentially against this axis of evil.
Do you feel President Trump has announced some key appointments, nominees for positions, some of whom are coming from Congress, many of whom we know, you know Senator Rubio. Are you encouraged by that choice? Do you feel you'll have an opportunity to help him get to the right answers?
Well, I think each of these nominees needs to come before the Senate and go through the process of being vetted. That doesn't necessarily slow things down depending upon the quality of the nominees. So I'm not going to sit here and pick out one or the other, but my first blush reaction to it is these seem like good selections.
So you've served in the Senate since 1985, and you're a historian, a respectful of the history and the importance of the Senate. Who has been your favorite colleague over those years?
Phil Graham.
Phil Graham.
Let me tell you, even though Reagan carried 49 out of 50 states in 1984, incumbents were not losing. We actually lost 2 seats in the Senate. I ended up, luckily, being the only Republican in the country to defeat a Democratic incumbent that day. But the guy who came in with me on our side was Phil Graham. Everybody had heard of Phil. Nobody had heard of me. I was completely intimidated by his intelligence, and I just sort of sat there and listened the whole time because he was an all-star. Also, on a personal basis, my all-time favorite.
All-time favorite?
Yeah.
Wow.
A close second.
Yes.
Lamar Alexander.
Oh. So we went through the list of accomplishments and achievements. It's a long list. What are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of?
Yeah, what is the...
Oh, my goodness. Look, that's the only question I didn't think of.
Yeah.
I think there are 2 types of people you run into in politics. Those that who want to make a point. If you want to know who that is, watch the Fox opinion shows at night. And those that actually want to make a difference, who really feel like they were sent here to try to have some impact on the country in a positive way. So I've always tried to put myself in the make a difference crowd and to try to deal with this incredible conference from Lisa Murkowski to Ted Cruz and get some sense of harmony out of it. And that'll be a challenge for my successor because we'll have all 3 branches. It's harder than it looks, even when you have all 3 branches.
So you raised the contest for your successor. You told me before we came out this evening that will take place tomorrow in the old Senate chamber. The Republican senators will go in, there will be some nominating speeches, and a ballot will be taken. And what's going to happen?
Well, first, the candidates will have 2 nominating speeches. And I think typically they think having the right people make the nominating speech is a good idea. This election's been going on for 8 months. What I can tell you for sure is our members are tired of it and anxious to get it over in the morning. You've had an unusual development here right at the end that I've never seen in a leadership race before, which is outside groups trying to influence what we do internally. I think that is a waste of their time because we all know each other pretty well. We've been together a lot. And tomorrow, somebody will succeed, and I'm not going to tell you who I'm voting for.
Well, okay. Do you have, is there anything, I mean, you've had some challenges in the last 5 or 6 years, which you've navigated, as we discussed, beautifully. Looking back, is there any big decision you made that you wish you could have back? Any regret? Any?
Yeah, but I'm not going to tell you. Actually, you know what? The biggest challenge I had, I was really young. I came down with polio, and this is actually during World War II. I've been around a while. And thanks to my mother's discipline, I was an outpatient at Warm Springs and actually had an appointment there right before Roosevelt died there. Now, fast forward to 3.5 years ago, a guy walks into my office and says, "I'm doing a book about your life and career." I said, "Really?" Obviously, he was not asking my permission. And having thought that over for a few minutes, I said, "Well, you won't have any trouble finding my enemies. I got a lot of them. But I'd like to direct you to a few of my friends." And so that book just came out a week ago. And I'm not here selling books, but I'm just telling you, I think he treated me fairly. And that's about all you can hope for in this line of work.
Now, I understand in the book that you do refer to Senator Cooper, who's your first mentor, or what's going on with him?
Well, he was the first important person I ever met. And I was a summer intern in his office and had the good fortune of being in his office when he was involved in breaking the filibuster against the '64 Civil Rights Act. And in those days, a lot of people didn't even have interns, and we only had one. So I got to be there the whole summer. And in the mailroom, remember, this is when we only had snail mail back then. I was, of course, in the mailroom, and most everybody who wrote was against it. And I remember asking him about that, and he said there's sometimes when it's really important for you to lead, whether people are behind you or not. For a kid who is 22 years old, it seemed like a good lesson. And so he was the first person of genuine consequence that I'd ever met.
He set a good example.
He sure did.
One of the things that we've noticed at AEI over the years, and I'm going to just close with this comment, and if you have anything you want to add to it, I welcome that, is that you have had wonderful people who've worked for you and who were loyal to you and have stayed with you for years. And we made an effort to make sure the alumni of your office were here tonight. And I wanted, on behalf of AEI, to thank them too. I hope you don't mind, but I want you people to know that.
Yeah. Well, let me just, on that issue, I have been extraordinarily lucky to have worked with outstanding men and women over the years, all of whom have made me look a lot better than I am. And it's great to see a lot of them here tonight.
Thank you, Senator McConnell. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.